Please welcome Laura Arth, Regional Vice President, Associated Luxury Hotels International.
Morning. For many years, Al-Hi's IAC meeting has been fortunate to hear from some truly extraordinary speakers. Thanks to Al-Hi's longtime partnership with leading authorities, a world-class speakers bureau at the forefront of the global events industry. Mark French and Rainey Foster have a sincere mission to provide innovative ideas and exceptional service to their customers by representing high-profile speakers ranging from business to politics to the media. Going beyond other speakers bureaus, Leading Authorities also produces award-winning video, designs, and executes events for a worldwide clientele. They deliver the thought, the leadership, the technology, and the expertise required to produce best-of-class events. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Senior Program Consultant, Catherine Bentley.
Thank you for that introduction. And David, Gabry, thank you again for your partnership, Leading Authorities, on behalf of Mark French and Rainey Foster and everyone else at Leading Authorities. I'd just like to thank you again for your partnership and all of our friends here in the audience that we work with. It's nice to see you as well. We are pleased to bring you a fantastic guest speaker this morning. David Nour has pioneered the phenomenon that relationships are the greatest off-balance sheet asset any organization possesses, whether large or small, public or private. In his current role as CEO of the Nour Group, he consults with clients such as KPMG, Disney, Siemens, and over 100 global organizations in driving unprecedented growth through unique return on their strategic relationships. He is the author of 10 books translated into 8 languages, including the best-selling Relationship Economics, which is the prequel to today's Co-Create message. Let's get everything rolling with an intro video on Co-Create.
Relationships. Your company has lots of relationships with customers, suppliers, and employees. To grow, just add more relationships, right? Wrong. It's not enough to just hunt down the biggest customer you can find. What matters most is how much your relationships matter. With whom do you want to intertwine your future, become inseparable, and give up a bit of your own self-interest to co-create a future that is brighter together? Somewhere along the line, you may have come to the false conclusion that you can go at it alone. Not anymore. No one can. Even simple business solutions today are made possible by the complexity that underlies them. To manage complexity and serve increasingly demanding customer needs, you need different skills, resources, and insights. Some try to address this need through a series of fleeting collaborations and partnerships. Most fall far short for an obvious reason: lack of commitment. To maximize your potential, you must be able to visualize exactly how your future will be intertwined with others. More importantly, all involved must be able to visualize and stick with the same picture. This is the fundamental message of Co-Create, how your business will profit from innovative and strategic collaboration. Visualize your intertwined future together. To find your answers, including a glimpse into the Co-Create canvas, please help welcome your keynote speaker and author of Co-Create, David Nour.
If you think about the light bulb or the electric light, it didn't come from continuous improvement of a candle. Similarly, I hope the way you were planning meetings, putting on events, inviting, engaging group gatherings 10 years ago are very different than what you're doing today, and hopefully very different than what you'll do 10 years from now. So in our time together, I want to share with you over 100 interviews, client examples, case studies, social science that fundamentally proves that you cannot succeed in the future going at it alone. Very quickly, I'm fairly active on social, and there's the Twitter handle. I've been using the co-create hashtag. I thought I'd start by telling you a little about my background. I actually spoke at the October of 2008 IAC meeting at Chateau Elan in Atlanta. By show of hands, how many were there to hear the? Good, so good few people. You're gonna still have to laugh at my jokes. So number one, I'm originally from Iran. I came to the US in 1981 with a suitcase, $100, didn't know anybody and didn't speak a word of English. I literally landed at JFK with a badge around my neck, put this kid on an Eastern airline flight to Atlanta, and he literally doesn't speak any English. But anytime I tell people I'm from Iran, it's critical for me to point out 3 quick facts for you. Number one, I have nothing to do with the nuclear deal. I do take cash payments from clients, but preferably not in a plane, middle of the night. And that is not my high school group picture, okay? I'm just putting it out there, right? I recently, of course, not last night, even after your chairman had 5 drinks, but I was asked, I told someone that was from Iran, they said, how fascinating. I love Indian food. What do you say to that, right? Me too, go curry, right? I do live in Atlanta, and I don't know if you've heard, but we recently had a little bit of a bridge collapse issue because we like to store highly flammable material under major arteries that kind of run through our town. But we also have a good sense of humor, so you saw a lot of memes come out about I don't exactly appreciate the Falcons-Patriots score at the bottom there. Okay, y'all can leave, right? You know, we're not going to be friends if you're going to do that, right? So yeah, we at MARTA is our rapid rail, by the way. So we found very clear, clever ways to channel 200,000 people that use that run, but they are making amazing progress. And kudos to folks that are doing that. I've spent the last really 2 decades passionate about and a student of business relationships to fuel enterprise growth. I spent 6 years at a private equity firm. We bought and sold 110 different companies. And I've seen some great teams with incredible ideas go to new heights. And I've seen great teams with incredible ideas go off the cliff. And if you look at really the fundamental difference between them is they become very intentional about the relationships they invest in. I'm blessed to speak at some great events. More recently, I'm doing more board retreats and really engaging a very different group. These are all military chiefs. Tom Bostic runs Army Corps of Engineers, $138 billion a year budget. So these are serious people with serious challenges, and I feel blessed to be able to work with them. I'm a consultant who speaks, not a speaker who tries to do more, and a lot of the ideas that I want to share with you today aren't just theoretical. These are, and again, if you look at just some of the clients, Evershed Sutherland's a global law firm. ThyssenKrupp is one of the world's biggest manufacturer of elevators and escalators. So think about many of you are from mature businesses in very mature industries. It's easy to talk about innovation. I want to talk about, how do you get there from very different avenues. American Society of Microbiology, Stefano Bertuzzi is one of the most astute association CEOs I've ever met, former deputy director at NIH. The guy's got Nobel laureates on his board. So there's no shortage of intellectual horsepower. But what I'm fascinated about is we're creating a chief innovations officer role within an association. He's taking reserves and doing acquisitions. We're talking about acquisitions of biotech startups. So it's just a very different mindset about an evolution of an association. So I'll talk about, and IPREO is a Goldman Sachs Blackstone joint venture in the fintech space. So I'll talk about some of the examples, and those are some of the examples that are in the book and people that are actually applying some of these co-creation ideas. I've been blessed to work with some really, really sharp folks. And as you heard earlier, Co-Create is actually book number 10 over the last several years. On a completely personal note, I have a young family. I have teenagers, so I'm hoping you'll have some sympathy for me because I'm not complaining around Josh. Where's Josh? But the hair is just leaving, man, at an accelerated pace. at an accelerated pace. I have crazy dogs. I have two Siberian Husky and a Bernese Mountain Dog, and I didn't grow up with dogs, and these dogs are like unconditional love. It's just, they're crazy. I'm an old Eagle Scout, and my son just got his Life Scout, and I absolutely believe in lifetime, thank you. Lifetime values of on my honor actually mean something. And this is what I do for fun. I think I didn't know anything about bikes a few years ago. My wife and kids bought me a scooter for Father's Day 6 years ago. Now I have 7 bikes, and I've gone 186 miles an hour on a straightaway on a track. So you want to feel alive. You don't have to do that. I brought you a little more subtle version, but it's become a passion. And I'm a big believer of what we do for a living isn't who we are. And if you don't find a way to disengage, I don't know anybody that can burn the candle at both ends. So it's really important for you to find your happy place and really invest in that personal and professional growth. So in terms of agenda, as you heard, relationship economics is really the prequel to the ideas I'm going to share with you. I want to touch up on that. I want to give you the premise of where Co-Create came from. Books for me have to percolate. I've been thinking about these ideas for about 4 or 5 years. And at some point, you've read enough, you've talked enough, you've consulted enough about an idea that you feel like you have something to share. And I really want to talk about kind of you next, the next iteration of you, the next evolution of you as an individual. And then hopefully give you some practical, pragmatic things to take away. By the way, there'll be several breakouts later today and tomorrow. I'm sticking around, and at the risk of certainly as a supporting role. Your chairman made sure I was there as a supporting role, but I'm here to help, and I'm here to hopefully help you take some of these ideas back and apply them in your world. Alhai is also kind enough to give everybody a copy of the book, so you'll get a copy of the book afterwards. I'm happy to sign it, but if you put it on eBay afterwards, we're not going to stay friends, okay? So there you go. So let's talk about relationship economics very quickly. Very similar to a brand, very similar to repute, very similar to credibility. I would submit to you that relationships, beyond a soft skill, also have a quantifiable value. They're also strategic if you're intentional about which ones you choose to invest in. And we've identified 4 ways to view relationships, and although they differ, they have profound impacts on you as an individual and your organization. Think about it a second. There is no relationship between logos. There's no relationship between buildings. The relationships are between individuals. So if you just take this simple orientation of self-oriented, all about me, all about my issues, and other-oriented, most people do this tit for tat. You do for me, I do for you. You take care of me on this event, and next time when your hotel is booked on Mondays and Tuesdays, we'll come Wednesday through Friday. The next level, unfortunately, becomes a little more delineated. Some folks are very much on the other orientation. I call them givers. God bless Mother Teresa. They just give, right? They get very altruistic. They love to give. The challenge is most of us can't be just pure givers, because I don't know about you. I've got something called a mortgage. The other end of the spectrum are takers. Have you ever met these people? The only time they call is when they want something. I'm sure this doesn't happen to any of the planners in the room, but the executives who call you 2 weeks before, by the way, can you also do this for 400 other people in a couple of days? The challenge with takers is they never see themselves as takers. I'm sure nobody in this room, but the hoteliers only call you when they want business. I don't know about your bank. My bank won't let me make a $100 deposit and get $1,000 in return. Yet how often do people come to us and ask for a favor where they haven't earned the right to do so? All the time, right? The pinnacle of this are relationship investors who fundamentally understand that, again, it's a lot easier to ask for a hand when you start by giving a hand. When you go out of our way to invest in people, when you go out of your way to mentor and coach others. One of my favorite questions of senior executives is, how's your bench? Really? and I coach a lot of executives, fundamentally focus on two things and two things only: brand and culture. What are you doing to build your brand? Because it has unbelievable value. And what are you doing to really develop and nurture that culture that's going to elevate the team to deliver on that vision? So in relationship economics, I'm a process guy, right? So I talked about, if you start with the end in mind, you identify these pivotal contacts or the relationships you need. Relationship bank are the relationships you have. The deposits or the investments you're willing to make. And if you do this in a systematic way, we call it strategic relationship planning. And through that process, we've proven, and I've built a bunch of IP around measuring, and again, making it more quantifiable, but we've proven that there's very unique stages in developing the relationship. So on the left-hand side, it says mapping. It's the ones that really succeed are the ones that really strategically plan, not just what should we do and how should we do it, what relationships do we need? How do we really accelerate our ability to get to those results we're after? So that's the mapping. The middle is really your relationship engine. You're relating to people, you're requesting, you're engaging. It goes on an ongoing basis. A very few set of relationships come out the other side where it says capitalizing. And that's really where co-creation is going to come from. Said another way, sociologists tell us that an average individual can proactively manage about 100 to 150 relationships. Here's my question of you. Which ones? How do you know? And if you can't invest in everybody equally, how will you then prioritize which relationships you're going to invest in? So co-creation fundamentally is not about you doing this with everybody. It's about how do we do this with fewer, but really more meaningful, more real, more authentic relationships who don't just talk about it, but demonstrate a vested interest in our success. Demonstrate that they want to be more than just a hotel property with a ballroom. They really understand the outcomes we're after. So the results we've seen is reduced transaction costs. Think of a customer acquisition cost. Think of a time and the effort and investment to take a product to market. We've seen loyalty deepen when you become more strategic about those relationships. We've seen access to new opportunities, right? By the way, if you ever, regardless of your business, if you start to respond to RFPs, you know what RFPs are? Beauty contests. Column A, column B, column C, right? I love hearing about opportunities before they hit the street, right? So can you access new opportunities through those strategic relationships? Last but not least, most organizations have pockets of relationships. Have you seen this? You know, some departments or some individuals do that part really well. They're connectors in essence. How do we institutionalize this? That creates really additional scale. So with that background, let me now share with you where co-creation came from. We were talking about, I know, you said don't call on me, you have a tie, you know how to use it, okay? I'm just looking that way. The hostility of your interim chairman. Okay, I'll look this way, all right? Questions, I don't know about you, but kind of eat at me. And in working with a bunch of clients, their biggest competitors, they didn't see it coming. It wasn't just known competitors that did things a little bit different. It was an unknown competitor that didn't have the baggage, that didn't have all the 100+ year history, that suddenly was able to start with a clean slate and do things very differently. So I came up with a single question. If I'm your biggest competitor, think about your role, think about your responsibilities, think about the business you're in. If I'm your biggest competitor, how would I disrupt you? Not compete against you, not the day-to-day where everybody knows the rules, but how would I disrupt you? How would I put you out of the business? Because I don't know if you've been to or not, but I took a board this past year to the Consumer Electronics Show. And this 70-something-year-old gentleman who's on that board put up a fight the entire time. We're not in the consumer electronics. Why should we go? It's a waste of our time. And 15 minutes later, he pulls me aside and says, I see now that every business is or soon will be under attack. Because you may think drones have nothing to do with your business, but think about what drones will be able to do. Think about what virtual reality, you take amazing pictures of your hotel and you put it on your website. With virtual and augmented reality, I can walk you through that property. Think of the potential with autonomous vehicles. We were talking about this earlier. You no longer need the drivers. You no longer need road signs. You no longer need a lot of the things that we use today. So many of you, in this idea of how to compete, many of you respectfully are doing business as usual. I'm just not sure how long you're going to remain relevant. Even if you do things a little bit better, here's a little more clever offering, here's a little more, something a little better, a little different, we do this a little bit better, and yeah, you'll be momentary. But unless you start to really think how we're going to compete in the future, what will this business look like, act like, how will we engage our target audience differently in 18 to 36 months? That's the runway most of my CEO clients have. That's the patience of their board, 18 to 36 months. That's how you stay relevant. That's the runway for you to start really thinking differently about your business. And we studied a great deal in customer experience. If you think about it, in any ecosystem, every client, including yourself, think of the last time you made a substantive decision or purchase, right? We're always evaluating. We're evaluating our current condition, we're evaluating where we are, we're evaluating what's working for us and what's not, right? We discover what do we need, we consider options, we come back to evaluation. We buy, we use it, we come back to evaluation. How was that experience? Would I go back to that property again? And the brand, the reason I coach CEOs to focus on the brand in many ways shapes our perceptions. The value proposition before I get there, how easy you are to work with, the contract environment, right? The experience we have before we get there, but also how do you fit in my everyday journey? My business does not, at the risk of Dave and company never inviting me back, my business does not start and end with your hotel. My business does not start and end with that one event. It is but a sliver in that journey. So one of the things I want you to think about is reversing that lens. You are a guest in their journey because that's where their customer experience is coming from. So the premise is really focused on how do you remain relevant. As a hotelier, as an association, as a company, how do you remain relevant? I don't think any of us are the smartest person in the room. I have a mentor who drives into me, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Agility and nimbleness matters more than ever before. When you're ready, move. When you're 80% ready, move. The last 20% doesn't matter. I can figure that as we go. Don't misconstrue my comment. The details are important, but agility and nimbleness matters more than ever before. Transparency. Transparency. I work with a client where the customer order disappears for 3 weeks. I kid you not. We started calling the Bermuda Triangle. I'm like, that's beyond unacceptable. When I can see my pizza, right, and where it is in its delivery stage on my phone and on my watch, right? A several $100 million order disappearing? Are you kidding me? Right? So transparency and a unique perspective. And by the way, as such, I don't know of an individual, a team, an organization that doesn't need to evolve. So what does that evolution look like? If you believe the premise that you have to evolve, what if that evolution came through co-creation of your value with a few, but really strategic, really meaningful relationships? People who demonstrate. I want to keep going back to that, not just talking about it. We love our customers. People who demonstrate through their behavior a vested interest in their success, right? And they're all around us. That employee at the front line of the docks who sees the products coming and going probably has some brilliant ideas about your supply chain issues. That 20-some-year-old that you just brought in, right? First job, second job, has a very different lens or perspective on what's happening. So these ideas are all around us. Are you savvy enough to think differently about them? So 8 ideas in the book, 8 ideas in this around us. Number 1 is introspection. We don't make enough time to think. In our gerbil daily lives, we don't make enough time to think. And it's a critical thinking and critical assessment skills. I'm telling you, it's dying breed for many people. Adaptive innovation, I'll talk about more in a second. Faint signals and prototypes, strategic relationships, fewer. I actually call it the Jerry Maguire business model. How do we focus on fewer but more meaningful, deeper relationships? You're a guest in your customer's journey, and that customer, by the way, could be an employee, could be a partner, could be an investor. You're a guest in their journey. Leading through provocation. Most people think about provocation as mean-spirited or a little too assertive, or I would submit it is drive. It is drive, it is grit, it is willingness, it is scrappiness to overcome previously unimaginable obstacles. Spiral of growth, leading drivers versus lagging indicators. How many of you have ever done a survey by show of hands, right? Response rate on those surveys, a lot of times are in single digits as average, right? Number two, think about it. The survey is results of what you've done in the past. I can't remember what I had for breakfast, much less, how did you feel about our program a month ago, or right? Versus leading drivers, sentiment, social, predictive, all give you foresight so that you could do something about it, right? In real time. Exceptional experiences, how do we anticipate? How do we use cognitive technology to get better at this? And last but not least is this idea of a canvas. So let me just show you a few of them. Adapt to disrupt. I actually like the idea of obstacles because they force us to think differently. They force us to think very differently about what we're doing and how we're doing it. They force us to, whether we deal with a nimble competitor or regulations or customer preferences, we learn as much when things aren't going well. We learn, we get scrappy, we get creative, we get things done when it isn't going our way. So if you learn to adapt to difficult scenarios, difficult competitors, unknown competitors, it allows you to really think about which pieces of our business is most vulnerable that we should disrupt before somebody else does. Which piece of your business is most vulnerable? I talk about listening louder. Listening louder because there are faint market signals all around you. They are all around you. Are you savvy enough to listen for those faint signals? Do you have relationships in the market to act as signal scouts? That is what I believe is one of the biggest assets and the genius of Dave and company. I'm going to need $5 for that plug, Mr. Gabri. Was gathering people who come from very different walks of life. You put on your events. You engage your audience very differently. So the breakout sessions are fantastic opportunities to engage others. And I want you to convey your credibility through the questions you ask, not necessarily the solutions you provide. And what I've seen a lot of teams, a lot of organizations do phenomenally well is iteration, which is they do the same thing better. Think about it. We all iterate pretty well. Few innovate, which they do new things. Even fewer disrupt, which is doing new things that makes the old obsolete. Let me give you a very specific example. I'm dating myself, but you remember us walking up to our televisions and turning the knob? Because we had 3 channels, maybe 5, right? And then we got these things, right? I don't know about yours, but mine I can now talk to, right? And the buttons, I'm like, oh, okay, I just want to, when your 13-year-old son is showing you how to use the remote, right? So they've gone through a lot of iteration. More recently, our remote is on our tablets, right? So I don't need that remote anymore because it's now an app. I would say in some ways that's innovation. But when your television understands, I know this will be scary for some of you, what you're watching, and by the way, it's connected to your Amazon account and knows what you're buying. And it's also tied to your PayPal account, so it knows what you're investing in. And it starts to recommend season 2, episode 4 of this show I think would be of interest to you, and it's dead on. Or you tell it no thanks. Now I no longer need that remote. I don't need to flip through 1,000 channels to find what I'm looking for. It starts to understand my likes, my preferences, my tastes. And this isn't some Jetsons. It's actually being worked on by several sources right now. Is these intelligent devices, including companies like Mattel with toys, that understand a toddler's preference to work with and play with which toy. The other thing I'm allergic to is vagueness. How often have you heard or you've been told, think outside the box? What the hell does that mean? Right? What I want you to do is think very differently about the box. I want you to think about RFID tags. I want you to think about cloud. I want you to think about what else can we do to leverage that box. Because guess what? The competitors you don't know of is exactly what they're doing. So, Coke. There's no, right? One of our favorite local brands. I went to Emory, Gozueta Foundation. I'm a huge fan of this brand, right? But it's no secret that more and more of us, our tastes are changing in carbonated drinks, right? So Coke they're no dummies, they get this. They've launched a program called Coca-Cola Founders. And what they're doing is they're partnering with proven entrepreneurs. And together, they're focusing on fundamental problems in the demographics, the psychographics, the target audience they want to serve. Not just today, but in the future. And what they're creating is jointly, they're creating and they're leveraging the Coca-Cola brand. I've met several of you. Think of your brand. Think of your global footprint. They're leveraging Coke's resources, reach, and relationships to create unbelievable companies that are, I don't know if you can read it from there, right? It is mobile network operator for millennials. Why would Coke care about that? They're developing video and image recognition technology. Why would Coke, the sugar water company, care about that? Because they want to be a part of that evolution and part of that disruption, not just sit back and watch it happen to them. Many of your organizations have enormous resources. You have unbelievable market reach. What can you do to be part of that evolution, not just sit back and wait for it to happen to you? The other idea I talk a lot about, and I've been thinking about this one, writing about this one, is adaptive innovation. So traditionally, the feedback loop has been customers, right? Hoteliers who are in the room engage their customers. We may put an advisory board together and we get feedback from them. Adaptive innovation is all about multiple sources of feedback from all around us that continuously help us think and improve and really think differently. Purposeful, provocative leadership. How many of you know who this is? Anybody? Kevin Plank is the CEO of Under Armour. This guy was a football player at University of Maryland and hated the way his cotton t-shirts felt under his football pads. So in the 90s, they came out of the gate with a different fabric that was more moisture wick, right? And which is our mesh, kind of the mesh t-shirts that we wear that we work out today. What you may not know is over the last year, Kevin Plank has spent over $1 billion in 3 technology acquisitions. Wait, what? They make tennis shoes and athletic clothing, and he's amassed one of the biggest communities of people who exercise. So now, think about it. He knows when you exercise with our wearable devices, how long you exercise, where you like to go exercise, and is getting all kinds of consumer behavior which will now drive their innovation, drive the way they develop product. Don't misconstrue my comment. I am by no means advocating that you abandon your business today. What I'm trying to tell you is you have to find ways to manage your present while you invent your future. You have to manage your present. Some of you, I spoke to several of your colleagues before I came, you put on hundreds of meetings a year. God bless you. You got to manage the present, but really think about how do we invent our future. He's getting now all kinds of insights about what should fuel their marketing, their product development, their talent agenda, their strategic partnerships, where they're going to invest. Many of us use Google for search on a regular basis. What you may not realize, it's a very small piece. It's right down there, right? It's a very small piece of what this conglomerate does. And what you may be aware of is the autonomous cars. What you may not be aware of is their Sidewalk Labs. Sidewalk Labs partnered with the Department of Transportation. And what they found out is their data in a city all around us. So they created this Smart City Challenge with 20 some odd cities, and they came to 5 finalists. And what they found out is through all this different data, they can create and they can solve very specific problems with all of us. Now, they may not be able to address collapsing bridges, but they can absolutely help us and those autonomous cars find the most effective, engaging ways to get around. How many of you use Waze? Well, have you heard the latest? Like, don't ever doubt Waze. If you doubt Waze, you're screwed, right? Do not doubt Waze, because Waze is wisdom. It knows how to get you through. I'm like, we're going the wrong direction, but it'll get you there, right? And it's learning from every one of those. It's calculating how long did that trip take. So my question of you is, how well do you understand, for the hoteliers in the room, how well people move through your property? The technology is there, without being creepy about it, to track just movement. And could that impact your staff? Where should they be, when? Based on the groups that we have here. Just an idea, right? So pilots and prototypes, again, the lean startup movement talks about create, learn, repeat. I love this quote, you can't grow the innovation quotient of your company if you don't invest in your employees' creative capacity. Are you investing in the creative capacity of your teams? Are you investing in their ability to help you challenge the status quo, not just defend it? And it's got to be really an everywhere, everyday job. Eric Ries, I'm a big fan of his, and the Lean Startup, you may have heard of that. It talks about exactly that. Learn to prototype quickly. Adidas is another interesting example. Their CEO gave the team a simple mandate. Create Netflix for runners. Create Netflix for runners. So they came out with Avenue A. It is a beautiful, I actually ordered one. It's a gorgeous box that shows up. And inside are products that are curated by professional athletes for runners. Guess what? They're not all Adidas products. So they partner with others, and whether they're artists or they're musicians or they're, right, fashion experts, to really create a great experience for that business. By the way, Avenue A is one of the most profitable ventures launched in the last 18 months because they figured out how to tap into the needs and wants of that target audience. Right? The other thing that we see a lot of is death by PowerPoint. I'm sure, again, none of your organizations do this, right? I got a 44-page PowerPoint from a CEO on their strategy. I called them back and I said, I think I'm pretty smart, but I'm on slide 6, and I don't understand what you're trying to say, who the audience is, or what do you want them to do differently? He says, okay, smart guy, what's the answer? I said, what if all 44 pages was one image? Think about it a second. We live our lives in the narrative. We think visually. What if it was one picture? That's it right there. If you start with a common mission, theirs was create an exceptional customer experience at the center, and we focus on quality solutions, great place to work, and great communication, and we gave some credibility components in the middle, could you activate an entire army around a single vision? Because make no mistake about it, they cannot follow you if they don't know where the ship is headed. So particularly, this is a gathering of leaders to meet and engage with other leaders. They cannot follow you if they don't know where the ship is headed. Somebody asked me, did you say SHIP? I'll wait. For a brand that will go unnamed, they've made a big commitment, the hospitality brand, to make a big investment in military. They found out that veterans who come back do an amazing job if we take those basic skills or those fundamental things they've learned in the military and give them an opportunity to transition. 10,000 veterans in the last 3 years have joined these guys. But visually, that's a lot easier to see, a lot easier to articulate. KPMG, they've been a client for about 10 years. I started working with the anti-bribery and corruption practice. And we were struggling with how we're going to visualize that. What, a guillotine in the middle of a field somewhere, right? But they work with chief compliance officers. They work with chief general counsels, right? And what we help them do is build a canvas to really articulate the global risk of an organization. Where are you exposed? Where are you vulnerable? Where is it outside of your control when it comes to bribery, corruption? And this has become a phenomenal tool. It doesn't replace the intellectual horsepower of the team, but it's become a phenomenal tool to engage their customers in the co-creation of that value. And they're not walking in with, a lot of consultants do this, you sit there, you be quiet, let me tell you how you should do this. With, help me understand where you're going. I kind of understand where you've been. Tell me where you're going. Tell me, here's my perception. Tell me if I'm wrong. So again, it's that co-creation of the value. The other thing we've seen this impact is your talent agenda. If you've hired, how many of you have hired millennials in the last year or so? Right? Most in the room, right? They want your job tomorrow, by the way. I just want to tell you that. They know they can do your job tomorrow. I don't know why you're here. I could have done that, right? If you think about the Hollywood talent model for a second, some of the most powerful, some of the most impactful players in that space, very few actually work for the studio. The studio hires a producer, who hires a director, who hires heads of these departments, right? And they work on, think about it, common mission, common vision for a period of time. And when they reach that goal, nobody goes back on the studio. Very few go back on the studio's payroll. They are fundamentally the gig economy, right? So Dan Pink wrote this book, Free Agent Nation, several years ago. We talk a lot about it in this idea that you're going to have to get much more comfortable with throwing a competent, capable team around a mission, a vision, and be comfortable with them executing that and then not being your employees. Because a lot of this next generation, and that's not just millennials, the Zs that are coming, I don't want to come, the days of our parents collecting a 50-year pen are long gone. And they really see the gig economy as, hey, a whole bunch of ATMs. I'll drive Uber on the side and I'll go do some TaskRabbit stuff. And yeah, I'll go in and do some work on the side. And you want proof? Put up an ad on Upwork. Less than 24 hours. I've got 30 bids for a project from all over the world. Logo tournament, $500 for a world-class logo. Again, produced in the Philippines. I mean, just on and on and on. So this Hollywood talent model and the idea of getting a sharp group around the table, around the project to get it done is becoming more prevalent. Travelport Labs, a ton of disruptions. We're talking earlier about the evolution of the travel agent industry. Remember us using travel agents? Some still do, right? How about stockbrokers, right? How about taxi cab drivers? Yes, some of us still do. But this evolution, the market is forcing us to do things differently. So Travelport, with all that's happening in travel, has created Travelport Labs, right? It's an incubator outside of the corporate hierarchy, corporate bureaucracy. And they're investing in these entrepreneurs who are reinventing travel. And they're reinventing travel innovation. Again, they're part of what's happening. They don't want to sit back and watch it and see it happen to them. This is the core. Not just talking about customer advocacy or customer friendliness or driving the organization towards customer centricity. Nothing, very little happens in Mahogany Row. Get out of the 50th floor and go spend time at the edge of where your business delivers its value. Because a lot of it is about centricity. It's about deeply understanding the needs of those customers and how do we engage them in that creation of the value that we bring. So let's apply it. Let's talk in the last few minutes. Let me talk about applying it. And then this actually is a good place. Let me pause. Questions, comments, insults, right? As long as you don't bring my mother into it, she's a good woman, right? I was there last night. I know this is not a shy group. So what questions of the stuff that I've shared resonates, or you have heartburn over, or tell me, what can I address for you? This is the interactive part of today. Yes, ma'am. How do you build a creative team? Let me give you 3 ideas. I'm a big fan of observable behavior. Start observing for people in your team, in your organization, that, some of it is their DNA. They have a different lens, and you've seen this, right? They look at things differently. They suggest things differently, right? I love those little sparks. The problem is a lot of organizations, they're not fanned. They're not fueled to go somewhere with it. There's a reason Google engineers set 20% of their time aside to work on things they find of interest and value, right? You may not be able to do 20% because you don't have the capacity, we don't have the people, but nurture that, right? I see it with my kids. If they pick on something, nurture it. 2, get out of your building. I'm trying to tell you, nothing happens in those 4 concrete walls. Get out of your building. Go to South by Southwest. Go to the Fast Company Innovation Summit. Go to places where you sit and you soak in what others are doing, preferably outside of your industry. 3rd one, gain the credibility and the support from the senior leadership to test a lot of different ideas. Even if you fail, and you've heard this idea, fail fast, fail forward. Your CFO asked me to please ask you to fail cheap. But we learn more when we fail than we do when everything's rosy. Does that help? Yes, sir.
What are the biggest challenge that you see in this global environment when you're mixing different cultures,
Yeah.
languages?
Yeah.
What are the biggest challenges?
Yeah, so the question was, what is the biggest challenge you see in this global environment? I'm going to give you a couple. One is, believe it or not, still that mentality of not invented here. If it doesn't come from us, it can't be that good. I don't want to know what other, this is why I love these events, right? The other hotel, right? So get out of that mentality of this is my sandbox, don't pee in my sandbox, and some of that is intolerance, right? I miss, this is not a political statement, but I miss the civil discourse between Reagan and Tip O'Neill. They couldn't agree, opposite sides, but they found a way to work together. They found a way to compromise. They found a way to move ideas and agendas forward. I think we could all benefit from listening more. And by the way, listening isn't I'm going to be quiet long enough to figure out what I'm going to say till after you're done talking. Can I really understand where you're coming from? The other thing that I fundamentally struggle as an immigrant, by the way, with the travel ban, I took a risk to come to be with you today because I might not be able to go back to Atlanta. I'm just putting it out there. Something like 40% of Americans have passports. If you don't get out of this comfort zone, you saw pictures of my kids. I did a leadership program in Jordan, Jerusalem, and Cairo. And I took them with me. And what an incredible education, right? How many of your employees, how many of your association members, how many of your hotelier staff have been outside of San Antonio? Get them out where they experience, not be told, not read, but experience different cultures, different perspectives, different point of views. And I distinctly remember the first time I went to UK, my daughter, I think, was 3, 4, 5, right? Oh, Dad, look, they're driving on the wrong side of the road. I said, oh no, honey, they drive on the other side of the road. So more tolerance for different perspectives, the respect to listen to different points of view, and get out of that and go see what's happening. So the challenges I'm seeing is still, this is the way we've always done it. It's mindset more than anything else, and lack of permission to take prudent risk. I sit on board meetings. I work with CEOs. The board is asking a CEO, we want you to grow double digit, but we don't want you to take any risk. Don't take any reputational risk. Don't take any financial risk. Don't take any human capital risk. We don't want to lose any of our great people. Don't take any risk, but we want you to drive double-digit growth. How does that work? So those are a couple of challenges. Let me go here, then I'm going to go there. Yes, sir. I charge $5 per question, $10 if you want a legit answer, okay? Yes, sir.
Which piece of my business is most vulnerable?
Yeah.
Reference that. I imagine that varies per industry, but I'm wondering
Sure.
if there are indicators that you can
Yeah.
share that help us to begin to understand how to pursue.
I'm going to give you, like doctors who diagnose in medicine, I'm going to give you 3 diagnoses of what I envision is most vulnerable. Number 1 is a piece that's going phenomenally well. I apologize. The question was, can you elaborate on when you said what part of your business is most vulnerable, right? Where are you most susceptible to disruption? One is when it's going really well, because everybody believes it's an autopilot. It's going to keep going well. That's actually the best time to look at, put a couple people aside to really think about that business isn't going to stay well. When it starts to decline, what's our answer, right? If it's going really well. 2, anything that's complex. Any piece of your business that's fundamentally complex, I guarantee you, somebody else is going to come up with a simpler, faster way to get it addressed. Law firm. They have to do a conflict check. If I've ever worked with you, I got to do a conflict check to make sure we've never worked with the opposite side, right? How long does that take? Week or 2. I asked the managing partner, what if that was on a mobile app and you could tell the client right there and then that yes, we can, or no, we can't work with you? It's like, that'd be amazing. Things that are complex, things that have a lot of moving parts. It's going really well. It's complex. I hate to say it this way, but if it's old school. By that I mean it's an opportunity to really infuse technology in a piece of it and accelerate that process or accelerate access to multiple sources of data. Rick Smith is the CEO of Equifax. I've met him. We've talked a couple times. They have built an engine that can bring in 5 million tweets per second. And if the client is Ford, and Ford's looking for who might be interested in buying cars, they can look at sentiment analysis to see who's talking about cars or Ford, bring in the tweets. They have income data, they have your credit score, they can go back to Ford with, here are the people that can afford your car. So if it's old school process or mentality that technology can dramatically change, that's a place where you're vulnerable. Let me go one more, and then I want to wrap up with a couple comments. Yes, sir.
As a mature association,
Yeah.
what messages can I give our older members,
Yes.
mature members,
Yes.
who will not get on the wagon?
So the question is, as a mature association, what questions or what can I provide for my more seasoned members who didn't paint on the gray hair? Is that a good way to say that? Seasoned members who didn't paint on the gray hair. Number 1, associations, you have to start with your governance model. Most associations' governance models are 1960s model trying to compete in 2017. Case in point, most of you don't have millennials or the next generation of your members on your board, right? That is a huge mistake because respectfully, if you got a 70-year-old member, a lot of wisdom, a lot of great insights about where we've been, very little insights in how do I use Snapchat to communicate with those members, right? So number 1, adapt your governance model. Number 2, get them out of their businesses. Get them out of the association mindset. Take them to places where they can see incredible innovation. I took one association board and the staff to a technology incubator. And we had their CEOs come and present to this, and they were just like, and by the way, a lot of those tech companies were in their space, and they didn't know any of them. Third one, a lot of associations are nonprofits. Unfortunately, they think nonprofit. So the visionary, it starts with you as the visionary leaders. You heard what I said about Stefano Bertuzzi. If he's adding a chief innovations officer to his senior staff, and they're taking part of their reserve to look at investing in tech startups, that's a very different mindset for an association. So if you want to stay relevant, that association revenue model, business model has to evolve. You no longer have the market cornered on intellectual horsepower. And by the way, I've got LinkedIn, so I can meet your other members without you. So what's your real value add? So let me wrap up. And again, I'm here the next couple of days. I'd love to talk to you about any of this. If you haven't noticed, I have no energy or passion for any of these ideas. So applying it very quickly. Have you seen this? Who wants change? Everybody. Who wants to change? Don't look at me. Who wants to lead change? We're out of here. Happens all the time, right? And one of my favorite or maybe least favorite analogies I've heard, unless you're a baby with a dirty diaper, nobody likes change. We're creatures of habit. I'm uncomfortable when I come back home from traveling and my wife has moved that sofa that I sit on because I like it there, right? Or have you seen this one? Let's not do anything different. Let's play it safe and work our way into obsolescence. How many of your leaders are thinking this way? How many of your members are thinking this way? Listen, we've been in this business for 100 years. It works. Why should we do anything different? Right? So I wanted to make it practical, pragmatic. So we've created all kinds of tools, all kinds of ways to apply these ideas. And there's a workbook that's a PDF that you can download, or we can get it to you. But I wanted to make it, I don't know about you, I've read books where you scratch your head like, where's this going, or what am I going to do with it? I didn't want this to be one of those. So as I hope you read the book, again, there's a workbook that you can actually apply. Your teams can apply some of these ideas. I'm probably most proud of the last chapter, the kind of the bow around the gift, which is this idea of a canvas. I think better on my feet. I think better with an easel and whiteboard and engaging people. So this is actually something I drew for a gathering of about 8 executives, and bottom corner, I just jotted down 10 ideas, and Lynn Wilson, who's our creative director and does an amazing job, turned it into a canvas with phases and steps and a methodical, so you no longer have the excuse of, we don't know how to do it. Here's a blueprint. Here's a way to walk through the steps to start thinking very differently about your business. And this is what Phil, that looks like, so it's engaging, and people place these on walls and in their cubes. And they start thinking about these ideas. And they start coming up with sparks and flames to fuel these ideas. So 4 principles, relationships. Many of you have talked about it, including your interim chairman, right? About empowerment, not hierarchy. How do we empower more of our people to do interesting things? Journey, measure it. Constantly look for ways to enhance that experience. Envision your value add. As a hotelier, as a brand, as an association, your value add must evolve. If it's the same, again, I say this respectfully, but if it's the same damn ballroom, meeting after meeting after meeting, you're not giving me a reason to come back. If the Wi-Fi isn't going to work when average person has 3 devices, you're not giving me reasons to come back. If you abdicate AV to somebody who makes it feel and look like amateur hour, you're not giving me a reason to come back. Alignment. Silos are never conducive to collaboration. Get these silos to work closer together. Get these silos to get out of their comfort zone and go do some interesting things. I'd love to continue the conversation. CoCreateBook.com is the website. The video you saw earlier today, you can download, you can share with your folks. The single biggest threat to anything and everything you've heard from me over the last hour is mindset. It's the culture of the organization. It's leaders who are hell-bent on defending their status quo, not challenging it. I don't want anything from you. What I want for you is to leverage the relationships in this room to think very differently about the evolution of yourself as an individual, your team, and your respective organizations. Thanks for having me. Is this a yellow tie?
It is.
It's a yellow tie,
It is.
right?
One more yellow tie. Thank you
My pleasure.
so much.
My pleasure.
We
Thanks very
appreciate
much.
So again, we want to say thank you to David so much for such a lovely, awesome presentation. But it doesn't stop here. Please know that his new book, Co-Creation, hot off the press this week, is just outside the door, so please pick one up on your way out. Next up is our networking break, set up just outside around the corner in the San Antonio foyer. Immediately after this, you'll be directed to the information exchange breakout sessions. Please find your session. It's on the back of your badges. And after that, we'll head to the Ballroom North Terrace for lunch at 11:45, and then we'll reconvene for our second round of pre-assigned breakouts. Thanks, everybody.